The story revolves around a survival scenario where a plane crashes in a jungle, leaving its passengers stranded on a deserted island. The narrative begins with a soccer match where the team, including a player named Siren, celebrates their victory and prepares to travel to the semifinals. Siren, who has a fear of heights, is comforted by his friend and team captain, Andy. As the plane takes off, Siren's anxiety escalates, and despite attempts to calm him, the plane's right engine catches fire, leading to a crash landing on an island instead of the ocean. Upon waking up, the survivors, including Andy and Siren, realize they are on an isolated island and must remain calm and resilient to survive. They gather the deceased and bury them, then scavenge through the bags left from the crash for food and supplies. Andy approaches the trainer for assistance, but the trainer admits he cannot provide medical help, only moral support. He points out Ilana, the coach's daughter, who is sitting alone on a hill, and Siren goes to comfort her. While searching through the wreckage, Siren finds a mobile phone but is disheartened when Andy tells him it is useless without a network. Tensions rise as Siren fears being trapped on the island forever. Meanwhile, Andy takes charge of rationing the limited food and water supplies, realizing they must be careful to make it last. As two other survivors, Bitter and Simon, venture into the ocean to retrieve more bags, they encounter a shark, causing Bitter to panic and abandon Simon, who manages to escape unharmed. The group faces increasing challenges as they navigate their new reality on the island, struggling to maintain hope and find a way to survive. Tension arises among the survivors when a month's worth of food is lost at sea due to the foolishness of two members, leading to a fierce argument that Andy intervenes to resolve. He emphasizes the need for teamwork and punishes both by making them go a day without food. As days pass, their supplies dwindle, and the group faces the grim reality that someone may need to sacrifice themselves for the others to survive. They construct makeshift tents for shelter, but with food and water running low, the situation becomes increasingly desperate. Siren regains consciousness after 3 days, bringing hope to the group, especially to Andy, who sees him as a source of strength. They discuss the dire situation, realizing they have only 4 to 5 days of food left. Andy suggests that they stop feeding the injured members to conserve resources, but Siren disagrees, wanting to care for them despite the risks. A meeting is held where Siren proposes that they must let the injured die to save the rest, a suggestion that half the group agrees with, leading to the decision to stop feeding the injured. Tragedy strikes when one of the injured dies 2 days later, and Andy is left to bury him, grappling with the weight of their choices. As time goes on, one of the survivors, Grossi, discovers a nearby island while searching for a place to relieve himself. Andy decides to explore this new island with 3 others, including his brother, in hopes of finding food. The island appears dark and foreboding, and while they search, the trainer shares his discovery of poisonous berries, warning that their food supply is nearly exhausted. Siren tries to uplift the group's spirits, insisting they will survive, but shortly after, the trainer takes his own life, fearing a painful death. Siren attempts to save him, but is too late. Meanwhile, on the new island, Andy's brother falls into a trench and becomes trapped in a World War II bunker, where he accidentally triggers a mine, resulting in a catastrophic injury that leaves him severely maimed. The group rushes to his aid, but the sight of his condition devastates Andy. That evening, they return to their camp, where Siren informs everyone about the trainer's death. Remembering his own rules, Andy makes the heartbreaking decision to end his brother's suffering, knowing that keeping him alive would waste precious resources. The emotional toll of these events weighs heavily on Andy, leaving him shattered as they continue to navigate their grim reality on the island. Is discovered, leading to a tense confrontation. Andy, consumed by grief and anger over his brother's death, has become increasingly unstable, driven by the haunting memory of his sibling urging him to take revenge on those he perceives as enemies. Meanwhile, Siren, who has been trying to maintain some semblance of order, learns that Ilana is merely unconscious and not dead, which gives him a glimmer of hope. As Siren attempts to rescue Ilana, Andy's group, now emboldened by desperation, begins attacking the remaining survivors one by one. Ryan, witnessing the chaos, uses a flare to signal for help, but the situation escalates as Andy's allies retaliate violently. The conflict intensifies, with both sides suffering casualties, and the once cohesive group fractures further. Siren and his remaining companions, including Eva and the injured Ryan, strategize to defend themselves against Andy's increasingly erratic behavior. They realize that they must stay vigilant, as Andy's group is likely to return for more supplies and revenge. The atmosphere is charged with fear and mistrust, as former friends now see each other as threats. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Siren decides to confront Andy directly, hoping to appeal to whatever humanity remains in him. He approaches Andy, urging him to remember their shared experiences and the bonds they once had. However, Andy, blinded by rage and grief, dismisses Siren's pleas, insisting that survival is all that matters now. As the days drag on, the survivors face not only the harsh realities of their environment, but also the psychological toll of their fractured relationships. The struggle for food and water becomes a daily battle, and the looming threat of violence from within their ranks adds to their despair. Siren, determined to protect his group, begins to devise a plan to escape the island altogether, hoping to find a way to signal for help or reach a nearby land. Tensions reach a boiling point when Andy's group launches a surprise attack on Siren's camp, leading to a chaotic skirmish. In the midst of the chaos, Ryan is injured, and Siren is forced to make a difficult decision about whether to fight back or retreat. The group is left reeling from the violence, and the once hopeful dream of rescue seems to slip further away. As night falls, the survivors gather around a small fire, reflecting on their choices and the bonds that have been shattered. Siren vows to find a way to bring everyone together again, but the path ahead is fraught with uncertainty, and the island's isolation continues to weigh heavily on their spirits. Siren and Andy's confrontation escalates into a fierce fight, drawing the attention of the other survivors, including Ilana, Ryan, and Martin, who stand by helplessly, aware that intervening could cost them their lives. The struggle is intense, with both men sustaining injuries, but the chaos is interrupted by the sound of helicopters approaching. As the helicopters draw near, Andy, in a moment of panic, flees into the jungle, leaving the others behind. The remaining survivors are overjoyed at the sight of their rescuers, who have come to save them after being alerted by a ship that spotted the group's earlier escape attempt. When asked if anyone else is alive, Ryan sadly confirms that it is just them, sealing Andy's fate to remain stranded on the island. The emotional weight of Andy's decision becomes clear. He is unable to leave, possibly haunted by the memory of his brother and the trauma of his death, which has left him mentally unstable. The survivors are relieved to be rescued, but the shadow of Andy's actions looms over them, highlighting the psychological toll the ordeal has taken. As they prepare to leave the island, the group reflects on their harrowing experiences and the bonds that have been tested. The arrival of the helicopters marks a bittersweet end to their struggle, as they are finally free, but must grapple with the loss of their former friend and the impact of their survival on their lives. The story concludes with a sense of hope for the future, despite the scars left by their times on the deserted island.